And for more, we are joined by Tanvi Madan, a senior fellow of foreign policy at Brookings Institution. Tanvi, thank you very much for joining us. So given the timing of that new reciprocal tariff policy during Prime Minister Modi's visit, how do you think it influenced the discussions between the two leaders on trade negotiations? Could it have affected the overall dynamics of the talks?
I think what you actually saw is one of the reasons that Prime Minister Modi came to Washington so soon into a new administration. This is very unusual, if not unprecedented, for an Indian Prime Minister to do. And part of the reason he was doing that is because he knows that President Trump does call India the tariff king. And so you've seen India try to preempt some of those reciprocal tariffs by bringing to the table things like more defense purchases, oil, liquefied natural gas purchases, which we heard about today as well. And you've also seen them talk about moving towards a trade deal that they will conclude sometime soon. And so all these things are to preempt some of those reciprocal tariffs. And so the timing actually in some ways works in India's favor, which is anticipating that these were going to come and try to head them off to some extent.
Okay, so from Modi's perspective, would he consider this a successful meeting with President Trump?
I think we are yet to see some of the details, but I think you would have seen India prepare for this visit, and they've been doing this for weeks, if not months, thinking about what President Trump's asks would be, announcing some lowered tariffs, but also what India is bringing to the table. As I said, defense and energy deals, but also changing some regulations in India to potentially allow U.S. companies in the nuclear power business to set up there, for instance. And so I think you're going to see a Prime Minister Modi that will be relieved to some extent that the visit so far has gone well. President Trump has said very positive things about him, about India. He has said he will go to India for the Quad Summit. He's talked about the U.S.-India relationship being very important to him. I think you will see, though, that there will be questions in India if India has, put too much on the table. But I think Prime Minister Modi has the political capital at home to be able to sustain some of these promises or deliver on them through that. The one thing I think that might raise some questions is you see that President Trump has not been drawn out on the question of competition with China. That is something that India will be watching very carefully, is what will the U.S. approach to China be? And unlike many other countries or in Southeast Asia, for instance, India actually wants to see the U.S. continue to compete very strongly with China. And so they will actually be wondering if President Trump is going to stay the course on that or try for a deal with Xi Jinping too.
Okay. Understand in your recent article, you mentioned that Prime Minister Modi is seeking greater alignment with Washington while maintaining India's autonomy. I mean, do you think he was able to make progress in setting that stage, that balance during his visit?
I think definitely on the alignment side, I had noted that I thought, and I think we've seen this play out, that whatever the concerns and the uncertainties that India had during the first Trump term, but also for this Trump term, that for India, the U.S. is such an important partner in pretty much any domain that you can think of: defense, security, technology, economic ties, energy ties, and strategically in the Indo-Pacific and globally, that Prime Minister Modi would make it a point to invest in this relationship and try to align with the president. I think you've seen them do that, adapting to a second President Trump term, adapting in certain ways. For example, Prime Minister Modi also met with Elon Musk, somebody who's very close to President Trump in this administration thus far, at least. And so you've seen them adapt. You've seen them continue to try to align. But I think you'll also see them do a third thing, which is try to insulate themselves from some of the headwinds that they know will come from a Trump administration that is always unpredictable. And for that reason, I think they'll continue to try to build their own capabilities, deepen ties with other partners, including in the rest of Asia. And finally, I think they will also try to keep relationships with China stable and not escalate, for example, at the border, because they don't want that when there's so many other uncertainties around.
Okay, so how about from Trump's point of view? I mean, would you consider this meeting a success for him?
I think he will probably think of it as a success, but I think he will also look to see if India is delivering. We're going to wait to find out what exactly India will be purchasing on the energy and the defense side, but those are the numbers he'll be looking at. He I think misspoke when he said that India and the U.S. have $100 billion trade deficit. It's nowhere that large. I think somewhere between 20 and $30 billion. But nonetheless, he wants to see that closed. And I think, you will see that he will tout not just the kind words and the positive words and the praise that Prime Minister Modi has showered on him, reminding him of the two big rallies that they participated in, something President Trump does focus on. But I think President Trump will also turn around and say to the American public, look, I managed to get some of these deals from India on trade, on defense, on energy. And I think he will probably also talk about the kind of immigration side, where India has said that they will accept more deportees, illegal immigrants, Indian illegal immigrants who've been in the US. So he will also tout that as a win. But I think he will also be watching very closely to see if India actually meets its commitment on concluding that trade agreement, which, knowing the trade negotiators on both sides, I think is going to be a hard-fought and tough negotiation.
Yeah, before we let you go, I just want to touch on immigration because you brought that up, a huge point of contention between the two countries. How do you think Mr. Modi navigated this complex issue of undocumented Indian migrants, especially given recent deportations? And did he manage to strike a balance between addressing U.S. concerns and upholding India's own migration policies?
I think what he has said, and he seemed to say at this presser we were just watching, is that India is not endorsing and is going to take action against illegal immigration. I think you've already seen one deportation flight to India. You will see, or perhaps not see, but they will happen, more deportation flights. And you will see, you heard the Prime Minister say what I had expected, that India is also going to move to act against these agents that are facilitating this, what he called human trafficking. Some in India would say some of these migrants know exactly what they're doing. They're not as innocent as perhaps the Prime Minister portrayed them to be. They know exactly what they're doing, paying large sums to these agents. But nonetheless, I think the recognition that this is a problem, and India moving to do something about this, which has also been a problem for India with some other countries and other partners, I think that recognition is there. I do think you might have seen more privately that India would have conveyed to the Trump administration that its ability to accept these deportees and more of them and cooperate with the US on this would be facilitated if the deportees were treated better, that they weren't deported on military flights, and that these deportations weren't publicized as much as the first one was, because all those things did create some political headaches for Prime Minister Modi. I think the thing finally that Prime Minister Modi and the Indian government will be focused on is trying to ensure that it is the legal migration side also don't receive setbacks, and therefore they will be watching the debate on these H-1B, these high-skilled high-skilled worker visas that are being debated between Elon Musk at Doge and Stephen Miller, who is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, both of whom met with Prime Minister Modi today, and they are on opposite sides of this legal migration question, to curb or not to curb. India very much wants to see that program continue.
Okay, Tanvi, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you very much for your insight this morning. Tanvi Madan, a senior fellow of foreign policy at Brookings Institution.